The latest on the situation, India and Pakistan say they've shot down drones and missiles over densely populated areas in a second day of military hostilities. Pakistan's army says it took out several Indian drones over cities including Lahore, Rawalpindi and outside Karachi. India says it neutralized Pakistani drone and missile attacks on Wednesday and Thursday, targeting military sites. No casualties were reported by either side. Now let's get insights from Mariam Mufti. She's an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Waterloo in Ontario. Professor, good to have you with us. Obviously, an escalation and the conflict between the two countries. Put this into perspective. How concerned are you, especially in comparison to what we've seen before in 2016, 2019, even though the circumstances are quite different?
Yeah, so the circumstances of this particular conflict are certainly quite different. Number one, the way India has reacted to this particular incident in Pahalgam is unprecedented. India has never before suspended an international water treaty with Pakistan. India has also never targeted the Pakistani heartland, and particularly the province of Punjab, since 1972, since the ceasefire agreement between the two countries. So certainly the way this conflict has escalated is quite different from what we've seen before, and that gives many analysts pause, because these are, of course, nuclear-armed states. These are countries that have domestic political constituencies that will not be satisfied without action. And we have constituencies on both sides and leaders that are leading hyper-nationalist foreign policies.
So at this stage, it's hard to see a de-escalation, but might there be an off-ramp? Might there be an opportunity for that de-escalation?
Perhaps there is an opportunity, right? So India claims that it has carried out strikes, very precise, well-thought-out strikes on 9 terrorist infrastructure sites in Pakistan, and that this was a calculated move by the Indian military. The Pakistani military is, of course, claiming that, well, they have downed Indian fighter jets, including the superior Rafale fighter jet. It is also claiming to have shot down several Indian drones. So is it possible for the Pakistani government to claim that the losses that it has inflicted on India is enough of a response to what India did just 2 nights ago? This presents a situation where a possible off-ramp could occur for both sides. Both sides could claim victory of a kind and cool the temperatures.
You know, we talk about that Indus water treaty that was suspended. Give us a sense of how significant that is, because I think a key takeaway is that Pakistan's ego was dented in the process.
Absolutely. So in 1960, a water treaty was signed between India and Pakistan that shares the waters of the river Indus, the headwaters of which are in this disputed territory of Kashmir. This river is a lifeline for Pakistan and absolutely critical for Pakistan's 250 million strong population. It is used for Pakistan's agrarian economy, it is used for industry, it is used for sustenance. Without this water, Pakistan really cannot survive. Now, India is upstream, and by virtue of being upstream, India can dam up these waters and divert them towards northern India and deprive Pakistan of its principal water source. Further downstream, this river has 5 tributaries that are also, the waters of which are also shared between India and Pakistan. In 1960, this treaty that was brokered using technocratic expertise without securitizing the issue of water is a treaty that has lasted several decades, despite the fact that peace talks between India and Pakistan have continued to fail. So this is a very, very critical treaty. Now, in 2024, India did signal to Pakistan that it would like to renegotiate and renew the terms of this treaty, citing demographic needs and changing demographic needs. So the suspension of this water treaty is quite the reaction from the Indian government, but perhaps it was one that it was pondering since last year.
Earlier, you talked about how it is a big concern given that both sides are nuclear powers. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you assess or rate the risk of perhaps Pakistan resorting to strategic weapons in this conflict?
I mean, I don't think that at this point that is what the Pakistani military is contemplating. It might be contemplating another response beyond what it has already done, which is the downing of the Indian fighter jets and drones. However, I mean, if Pakistan were to escalate this conflict, we have to bear in mind that Pakistan also does not possess the same amount of strategic depth that India has. And if this conflict were to escalate, and if this conflict were to prolong, India is more likely to prevail because it does certainly rank higher on the global firepower scale than Pakistan does. So even if Pakistan were to take the first strike, I mean, nuclear weapons really are a deterrent in South Asia, given how close these two countries are to one another.
Is there any signal, suggestions, perhaps both sides are getting diplomatic support, and if so, from which countries?
Right. So there has been reporting that the NSAs, the National Security Advisors on both sides, have met, that there have been some back channels that have opened up for diplomacy. And this is, in fact, a very, very good sign. As far as the international community is concerned, it remains to be seen. I mean, the statements that are being made by international players, particularly Western countries, do not necessarily seem to suggest that they are working very hard on de-escalating this conflict. Of course, they have all made statements to say that India has the right to self-defense. They've all made statements that terrorist activities cannot be tolerated. They've all made statements that both countries, nuclear-armed, should de-escalate the conflict because the world cannot afford another such conflict. However, have they done anything concrete in order to de-escalate the tensions? We haven't quite seen that. And it appears to be that the international community lacks the appetite to mediate between India and Pakistan, given how it's bogged down with so many other conflicts right now.
Right, and you got to wonder and assess China's role in this conflict. Of course, we've talked about possibly Chinese weapons being used on the battlefield. I mean, do you see China playing a much bigger role in this conflict to the conflicts we've seen before between the two sides?
Yeah, typically we haven't seen China intervene in a conflict between India and Pakistan in quite as direct a way as it has at this time. China did come out with a statement saying that it very strongly believes in Pakistan's territorial sovereignty and that it will not tolerate a threat to Pakistan's territorial sovereignty. What is also different now is that Pakistan is home to Gwadar port that has been built using Chinese loans, and Pakistan plays a very, very important role in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and China's Belt Road Initiative. So China definitely has a stake in this particular conflict. I mean, also bear in mind that China and India have a disputed border as well, very close to Kashmir, and then the rest of the border, which is also contested between the two countries. Right. Yes, Chinese weapons are being used in this particular conflict because China is Pakistan's all-weather ally, and in fact, 80% of Pakistan's arsenal is now China-made and China-sourced, as opposed to India's, which is a little bit more diversified than China's. But India is relying very heavily on U.S. backing and Russia-made weapons. So, so maybe what we are also seeing over here is a competition between these two different military technologies.
High stakes for China, high stakes too for the U.S., except that we've yet to hear the U.S. say it will back India in this conflict. The most we've seen is what we heard from President Trump, who said that it is a shame. But that has been the extent of that response.
That's right. I mean, President Donald Trump has not come out making any strong or powerful statements in support of India. I think part of what's happening right now with the United States is that they lack any kind of diplomatic way into this conflict because there are no envoys yet appointed to South Asia, neither Pakistan nor India. The United States also is lacking a South Asia foreign policy and a South Asia strategy ever since it's pulled its forces out of Afghanistan. And I think America has been caught on its back foot. Furthermore, I think the first 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency have actually hurt the United States' position globally, given what it's doing to the economy right now. And yet we know that for the United States, India is actually the much more important partner in its quest to contain China.